Why super empaths attract narcissistic women without trying. Have you ever noticed that some of the most emotionally kind, patient, and deeply compassionate people somehow end up attracting the most manipulative partners? It seems almost paradoxical. The person who genuinely wants to understand, heal, and support others often finds themselves entangled with someone who takes advantage of exactly those qualities. This is especially true for what psychologists often call the super empath. A super empath isn't just someone who feels empathy. They feel it intensely. They are emotionally perceptive, deeply intuitive, and unusually tolerant of other people's flaws and pain. At first glance, this sounds like the ideal partner. But strangely enough, these very traits can make them magnetic to narcissistic personalities, particularly narcissistic women who are searching, often unconsciously, for someone whose emotional depth they can feed on. The reason this attraction happens has less to do with fate and more to do with psychology. Narcissistic personalities are constantly scanning their environment for what psychologists call narcissistic supply. This includes attention, validation, emotional reactions, admiration, and sometimes even emotional chaos. A super empath naturally radiates these things. They listen deeply. They try to understand motivations. They forgive easily. They believe in the potential for people to grow. To a narcissistic woman, this looks like an endless emotional reservoir. It is like finding a well that never runs dry. The super empath does not even realize they are signaling this availability. They are simply being who they are. They are open, warm, and emotionally intelligent. But narcissistic personalities are experts at sensing this energy. It is almost like a radar. They notice who pays attention to others. They see who tries to fix problems. They recognize who shows patience when others would walk away. Where most people might see kindness, the narcissistic mind often sees opportunity. This is why the attraction often begins very quickly and intensely. The narcissistic woman may mirror the empath's values, interests, and emotional depth. She may appear unusually vulnerable. She might share personal struggles that make the empath feel protective and needed. To the super empath, this feels like an extraordinary connection. It feels like two people who truly understand each other. But beneath that connection, a subtle, psychological dynamic is forming. The empath feels purpose in helping and understanding. At the same time, the narcissist begins receiving the emotional attention and validation she craves. In many cases, the empath's greatest strength becomes the very thing that keeps them in unhealthy dynamics longer than most people. They give second chances, then third chances. They analyze the narcissist's behavior not as manipulation, but as hidden pain or unresolved trauma. They think that if they understand the person better, maybe they can help them heal. This persistence can make the narcissistic partner even more attached, because few people are willing to tolerate the emotional volatility that often comes with narcissistic patterns. However, there is a twist that many people do not realize. While narcissistic women are initially attracted to super empaths, they also become deeply unsettled by them over time. The reason is simple. A super empath is not just compassionate. They are also perceptive. Eventually, they begin to see through the manipulation. They notice inconsistencies. They detect emotional games and control tactics. When a super empath finally reaches their limit, something powerful happens. Instead of collapsing emotionally the way a narcissist might expect, the empath often transforms. Psychologists sometimes describe this as the empath entering a supernova phase. During this phase, they stop absorbing the narcissist's behavior and begin confronting it directly. Boundaries appear, where there were none before. Emotional reactions stop feeding the narcissist's need for drama. Suddenly, the entire dynamic shifts. The narcissistic partner, who once felt in control of the emotional energy of the relationship, now feels destabilized. This is why the relationship between a narcissistic woman and a super empath often feels so intense. At times, it can even feel addictive. It becomes a psychological push and pull between empathy and control, understanding and manipulation, emotional depth and emotional hunger. The most important realization for super empaths is this: attracting narcissistic personalities is not a sign of weakness. In fact, it often happens because of emotional strength. Narcissistic individuals are drawn to people who possess qualities they themselves lack. These qualities include authentic empathy, emotional awareness, and the capacity for genuine connection. The real challenge for the super empath is learning that empathy without boundaries becomes vulnerability. Kindness without self-protection becomes exploitation. Understanding someone's pain does not mean tolerating behavior that harms your own emotional well-being. When super empaths learn this lesson, something remarkable changes. They still remain compassionate, but they also become selective. They recognize manipulation faster. They protect their emotional energy. Interestingly, the moment they stop trying to rescue everyone around them is often the moment narcissistic personalities lose their grip on them completely. The truth is simple. Narcissistic attraction thrives on unlimited emotional access. The moment that access becomes guarded, the dynamic no longer works the same way. That is when the super empath finally begins to use their greatest gift, empathy, not just for others, but also for themselves.